Hey there everyone, it's Scurvy back again with another video, and if you couldn't tell by the picture, yes, we're getting into politics today. Actual politics, not anything relating with dating and such. But I wanted to talk about the upcoming midterm elections here in this country. I think it's probably going to be the most important one in recent history. There's so many key issues that have been going on and that are finally reaching their boiling point now. But what I want to talk here is, well, who should you vote for? And, well, I'm not here to particularly say, vote one way or the other. But we do have quite a bit to discuss in terms of that. I think out of all the key issues that have been presented so far, I think the most important one is war. This is because the ongoing conflict that's happening in Ukraine, the Russia-Ukraine war. I'm all for not entering in this at all. I think our military is weak, and considering that I'm somebody in the red pill community and all that, it means a lot of young men are gonna die, even if someone like me isn't necessarily gonna be drafted. That's one benefit of being disabled, all right. Jokes aside, it's like I want to actually move up in the work world. I also want to go to grad school. Scurvy does have some big dreams he wants to accomplish. And if I'm somehow drafted, not likely that I would I be drafted for war in that context? Yeah, bye bye to those dreams. And if I were to somehow survive, which is not very likely, yeah, I would practically leave nothing behind. I have, no kids. Scurvy's 22. But, and theoretically, my, some of my family members could be drafted. It's not good. It's not pleasant. And that's why I'm supporting candidates that are very much anti-war. Like, I've been doing my research in with the candidates in the states that, the state that I live in, and I come to figure that it's an instance of, oh, the party switched. If we're gonna use layman political terms or historical events, which even then a party switch never really happened. Right now, what we're seeing, one side over here, the donkey, the Democrats, in Tulsi Gabbard's own words, is just a bunch of elitist warmongers. And then the other side over here, the Republicans, are very much anti-war these days. Like, they know, like, in my opinion, they know that getting into, like, a fight with Putin is not a smart idea. Because our military, it's kind of weak right now. Weak men make for hard times and all that. Better Bachelor talks about this on his channel. Much better than I could about the military. He was in the Air Force, or as they say, the Chair Force. Anyways, and then you also have the libertarians, the third parties. Although I wouldn't want the Green Party to be my ruler in any capacity. So what does that leave you? So let's just say you voted Democrat your whole life, right? And you will never ever want to vote for a Republican. What do? Yeah, oh yeah, yet you don't like the candidates. Like, the candidates are pro-war and you're very much anti-war. What do? Well, as you can see by this little crack over here, vote for people in that crack. And by the crack, I'm not talking about, like, insanely fringe parties. I'm talking about more, like, stuff like the libertarians. Like, the libertarians in my state, like, they're, on one hand, they try to appease some of the people on the right with the anti-lockdown stuff, all the COVID bullshit, the vaccine mandates, all that stuff. But they're also trying to appease those on the left with, holding up abortion rights, and I say rights in quotes. They're not rights, to tell you the truth. But I'm what's that word again? Diverting from the subject. Whatever. But yes, vote within those cracks. But let's also say, you're a Republican, lifelong Republican, and you don't like you don't like the candidates for one reason or another. Hey, you also got to learn how to compromise. Well, once again, vote within the cracks. There chances are there is a candidate that actually might want your vote, and you could actually give it to them. As I like to say, no vote's a dead vote, unless you're actually dead. The dead cannot vote. But anyways, back to the key issue here. And I guess the way that I see it, one side is heavily pushing for, that we don't go to war. Our country is not in a position where we could go to war like we could in the past. In the Cold War or World War II, the world is different now. There is problems on the home front that need to be taken care of first before we could even think about other countries. And then on the other side, you have the way that they feel about this, and I guess I'm going to try to speak from the perspective of a Democrat voter, not necessarily a politician, because those guys are all in for the war, but the average Democrat voter might be thinking, hey, we value our allies across, past the border, so we should give them at least some aid. And there is some merit to that. I understand sometimes, helping out a foreign friend or something, even an adversary, to keep them on good terms. But the constant spending to Ukraine, especially from sneaking in that stuff into bills, it's almost like they're trying to fund a war effort, constantly giving away our guns, our resources, making inflation in this country even worse than it already is through needlessly spending. And this is where the right here in this country are starting to say, it's we're more focused on the problems in the country we live in before we could participate in any kind of war. That's kind of where righties like myself kind of get that argument from. And yes, there's a lot of problems in the culture that the left doesn't really like us talking about, although we finally can. And this is something else that I'm going to be talking about here, because I think social media and how it influences elections, that's insanely important too, now that Elon Musk has bought Twitter. Now, what's going to happen is that stories like the Hunter Biden laptop story ain't going to get covered up on Elon's watch, basically. So, and that's a story that had huge results. It could have made people question their vote to Biden. I think, what's the number, 5% on that? You're gonna have to do your own research on that. I got the information that I'm telling you this from Think Before You Sleep. I'll probably have a link to his video on what I'm referring to. I probably won't be able to provide the timestamp, but I do find it to be important. Stories like that can influence elections. I'm sure there is something like that has happened in the past. I'm just unsure as to when and and what president in particular, but you have my word that I have a feeling something like that has happened in the past, and it has influenced people's choices in a general election. And so now, because it's gonna Twitter is gonna be a lot more fair game for conservatives, especially because now we won't have to worry about getting banned. I don't think I'll be making a Twitter anytime soon. If you do, you'll probably see an update video from me on that. Um, but now, because Twitter's no longer going to be an echo chamber, what that means is that, people are, you're going to get both sides of the story. And I find that to be insanely important. And I think this crack right here might actually, be gone because people are allowed to speak their fucking minds. That is insanely important if you want people to not be radical. Like, like, and it's like what Elon said the other day. Like, the world is becoming increasingly fractured because you have echo chambers like pre Elon Twitter that just bolster one side of the story so much, but also censor the other side of the story like crazy. So you're not going to be able to come to your own conclusions because the powers that be, the establishment, whatever you want to call them, they don't want you to think and be able to make choices. They want you to just vote the way they want you to vote, and not vote for somebody who's anti-establishment. I mean, look at what's happening in Italy or Brazil. Like, what's happening in Brazil, like, that's actually pretty important for the future of South America, actually. And what's happening in Italy, and I think in even some other countries in Europe, I'm not going to say the European Union because, that's tenuous at best these days. But in Italy, like, that's kind of like a spark that's going to set Europe ablaze with, like, renewal. It's a phoenix. Europe might actually be a phoenix in these coming years if the voters, the citizens of those countries are actually going to be like hold their governments accountable. Like, I remember seeing a video in Brazil, and I know I'm getting very off topic here, but this does have a point that I'm trying to get to. But I remember seeing a video from this guy voting in Brazil, trying to select Bolsonaro, and the machine just would not work. And yeah, that's an actual dirty trick that, the establishment tries, and if people don't point it out, then they're going to succeed. But in terms, getting back on the main topic here, an election can matter a lot. Like, and especially an election like this, where the policies are a little bit more, they affect the citizens in those states a lot more. I mean, I have a feeling what happened in Nashville a week ago, the rally to end child mutilation from Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire, like, that's going to be huge in a good way. Obviously, my bias is showing a little, Scurvy is conservative, if you couldn't tell. But, if you want to see your state change for the better in terms of your ideological standpoint, well, you gotta vote for those candidates. And that's what I'm doing. And the voting thing is an acceptable, like, ideological battleground, not a physical battleground. Some of those people are probably armed, and you probably don't want to upset them. Probably don't want to interrupt them. Like, let them make their choice, and we'll see how things play out. But, in my mind, kind of hoping that this red wave will happen. I think the country needs it, and that's how I'm going to be voting for. It's not, though, for me, it's not entirely on party lines as much as it is values lines. Like, and I know this might sound a little stupid, but I think I can trust the people that I'm going to be voting for. Having done a little research into their characters, I think that, the candidates in the state that I'm in, particularly, on this side right here, are fine. I think they're going to do a good job, even if some of them are a little bit more on the milquetoast side. Establishment, I wouldn't exactly say that, but, you know, but ultimately, like, and I never thought I'd be someone who'd be pushing, like, people to vote this much, but this is more important than the general election, if you ask me. So ultimately, if you don't like the candidates on this side, and you might be Republican or conservative, think about the cracks. The same thing goes if you're a Democrat and you don't like the candidates. You walked away like Tulsi Gabbard did. Think about the cracks, or maybe give the other side a chance, or hear them out. And I encourage conservatives and Republicans to try to listen to the left, as crazy as they are. You still gotta listen to them. I do know, and and I'm a little guilty of this myself every now and then, of just like completely talking over as soon as somebody starts saying something stupid. It's so tempting, but you gotta let them speak if you don't want to feed their persecution complex. And with that politically charged video finished, I guess, this is a video after all. I guess normal video production will resume sometime in November. I still have a job to get used to, a routine to kind of follow. And so I'm thinking that for the future, videos are probably going to be uploaded on Saturdays instead of Tuesdays. So expect that. I think the next video will be part 1 of my World of Warcraft Shadowlands review, and next one after that is going to be part 2. And with that being said, thanks for watching, everyone.